For those of you who may not recognize my guest, I guess he'll come on after I stop talking. It is Ben from Novalux Stereophonics, one of the best vintage geared YouTube channels, at least in my opinion. And he was kind enough to stop by for an interview and, just kind of talk some audio stuff. I had sent him a list of questions to kind of make it a little bit more straightforward and easy flowing. But I forgot to write this on there. How did you come up with the name Novalux Stereophonics?
Well, hi Scott. It's I'm happy to come on and share some thoughts with you. Thank you for the invite. The name Novalux Stereophonic came from my early days working in solid state equipment, where I was experimenting with LED modifications a lot. I would find this was kind of before the uh, LED lighting became very good on eBay that you could get. You can get really consistent dual polarity LEDs and stuff. So it was kind of a challenge back in the early days. So I spent a lot of time creating little kits for adding LED lighting to things like a Yamaha C4 or stuff like that. And I was also very into studying the Latin language. My background is in music. I have a degree in music composition, and I was into writing choral music, and I studied Latin as part of that. So the word Novolux is in Latin a combination of two words meaning new light and then stereophonic. So it was like I was giving new light to stereo equipment. So that's
Oh,
where that business name came from.
oh, I never would have figured that. So these two, how long have you been repairing electronic gear and what is your background? Those kind of flow together.
Sure. So I kind of got the bug around age 18. As I mentioned, I went to music school. I have a bachelor's degree in music composition, and when I was kind of gearing up to get ready to go to college and committed to studying music, I thought I need to be able to listen to recordings in the highest fidelity possible. So I started studying, just what an audiophile was, what good equipment was, and I built my first separate system. And through that process, I bought a lot of used stuff that didn't work very well. I had to clean controls and do things like that. So that was when I was 18. I'm 36 at the moment. So it started about 18 years ago. I've been doing it pretty seriously as far as repair goes for about 10 years. The big change there was I bought a pair of Heathkit W5M monoblocks, and I gutted them down to the chassis, studied how vacuum tube circuits work, and that was a great process to build those back up from scratch with the kit instructions, and I learned a ton. And from that point, it just kind of spiraled, and then for the last 5 years, I've been doing it full time as a professional career.
So that kind of flows into what caused you to be interested. It was buying something and then stripping it down and getting really interested in it at that point.
Yep, yeah, for sure. It was always something I kind of had as a kid. I remember in my childhood there would be cleanup days. They called it spring cleaning in my neighborhood, where people would just stack up junk on the side of the
Oh,
road. And before the scrappers came to try to pick
the,
through and get the metal, I would go in there and find all the audio equipment. And I didn't know what I was doing. I was probably like 10. I would bring it home and take it apart with a screwdriver and just lay out a bunch of circuit boards on the floor. I didn't know what I was looking at, but I obviously had an interest in it from a very young age.
that's great. You mentioned that. We call it brushy and bulky. And it's today, I mean, I haven't come by today, but they actually have a little bulldozer that comes by to help load a lot of stuff. And sometimes people will have speakers out. I haven't seen anything that interests me, although there was a cassette rack, a nice wooden rack, and I was running and then I went back when I was done to check it out. I thought I do have a lot of cassettes. They'd be nice to put in a rack, but it was not in good shape. So I passed on it, but you never know. Yeah, that kind of thing. I assume you do your own video editing and shooting.
Yeah, I do everything myself. I don't have an editor at this stage. If the channel ever grows to be, much bigger than it currently is, I might consider it at one point. But I really do enjoy the editing. That's something I did in high school. Was I made movies with my friends, so I kind of had that love going into this. So I do enjoy the editing process, and I like the control of doing my own content.
Do you use the YouTube thing or do you use a different software?
For editing,
Yes.
I use Final Cut on Mac.
Okay. Okay. So you're more of a Mac guy.
Yep, I used a software called Sonar, which was a PC based thing, What got
Oh,
me into what got me into Mac was actually the other career path I took. So this gets back into background, and this is actually a good point to make. So I met my wife in music school in college, and she was the more talented of us. She's a classically trained singer, and she went to grad school in Ithaca. That's how I got into New York State. I'm originally from the Midwest. And what happened there is I needed to find a job to support us while she finished a graduate degree. And I was thinking, well, it's kind of difficult to make decent money right off the bat in music. So let me look around at other things. And I was like, I always like to install home theater stuff. I was really into movies and surround sound and stuff like that. So I ended up getting a job at a kind of a smart home business, and I had done that for 12 years. So that's kind of the industry that I came out of before I switched over my hi-fi repair hobby into a full-time gig. I was in the home automation industry, so I did uh, programming of lighting and home control systems, whole home AV systems, and that's where I kind of built a lot of racks, and that's
yeah,
really
yeah, that's pretty.
came from through my experience in the home AV industry, where you'd have a centralized rack system and then dress all the wiring and stuff. So that was the inspiration for the patch panel.
Yeah, that's. I look at your area and it's much more organized. I'm sitting in mine. Really can't see it because it's over here. But is this your main job? I assume it
Yeah,
is.
this is a full-time gig for me. It's every day of the week I'm repairing audio. It's really all I do. And then when I have a little bit of time, I try to capture that content and share it on YouTube and Instagram. So this is my full-time gig.
So you moved recently. I think you were living in New York City.
Yeah, yeah. So it was kind of a dirty little trick my wife played on me. So after she finished up at grad school in Ithaca, she said, we're pretty close to New York City. Can we just try it out for a year or two and see how it goes? And long story short, we were there for 10 years before finally escaping to the Hudson Valley. So I'm north of the city now. It's about an hour and a half north by the Metro North train or by car.
Okay, so
Yeah.
I
When we
see where
first
you're
moved there,
at
it
now.
was,
You got trees. I can see trees in some of your
yeah,
videos in the backyard or wherever, front yard maybe. So that's got to be a more, I don't know. It's you probably got a lot more space for what you're paying.
yeah, yeah. The space is definitely improved. So one of the reasons that this bench is so organized is because I was so limited on space in Manhattan. So when I designed this bench, I had to fit everything in a very tight space. So that's why it is kind of like compact and organized as it is, because I couldn't fit it any other way.
Right. Yeah, that makes
But it's
sense.
helped. Now I'm in a bigger room to do this work in, and it allows me to be very efficient with what I do. So that's that.
So because your business is at home, do you have like, okay, I'm going to stop working at 8 p.m. Or if something's really bothering you, one little thing, I'm just going to solder this and test it. Do you find yourself doing that more, or do
So
you able to
at
turn
the
it off?
at the old location, the bench was literally in my living room, and it was very hard to turn off work. And it was a big problem, and that's one of the reasons that contributed to moving. The area that I work out of now has a door on it, and at the end of the day, I can close the door and basically be done with work for the day. Now, it doesn't mean I won't sneak back in and do some paperwork or something, but I do try to stop my bench work at a reasonable hour
Good.
and and not just work all the way through. So having a door on the lab was a big improvement in that respect.
No, I relate. Like I said, we have what we call an Arizona room here. Uh,
Okay.
and so my wife's on the back half there, her desk and computer, and we got about I probably own 60% of it with the stuff I have. But I try to cut it off a certain time. Now I'm not doing this for a living. It's a hobby, but I'll like right before I go to bed, I go, yeah, I'm just gonna solder that and be done with it. That kind of happened last night on something I'm working on, um, but yeah, it's different if you're doing it full time. But that
Yeah, that was
temptation's
actually
always there.
one of the reasons I got into YouTube more seriously, was because once I took this on as a career, it wasn't a hobby anymore. I really still enjoy it, and it's great to be able to make a living doing something I love.
Yes.
I still need something else. So YouTube has kind of become what audio repair used to be. That's what I kind of do in the additional hours that I end up with in the day. So that's kind of how that worked out.
Yeah, well, you're really one of the best the way you present things. I mean, you talk about everything from speakers to really cool vintage gear, and you get into details that I would now that I watch your video. There was one on the resistor switches or something that I would never even have go there trying to take it apart. Uh, but yeah, and then you know you talk about bench stools, soldering irons. I think there was a cordless one.
Yeah.
It just or USB chart. I forgot how that you had some issues. Then you had a second video, an update. You know, you just go into all different things, and that's why I appreciate it. And you do such a good job of explaining, and your video quality is really good. And I said there really aren't that many, and I'm going to put a link to your channel in my description, of course, if people aren't aware of you and they're all into vintage gear. I said you just do really good. And the funny thing was, and I was serious about this, is I was thinking about sending you an email to see if you would do an interview, and the very next day you emailed me. That's kind of the way life works sometimes.
Yeah.
So, and I did watch the video on the MCM IR last night.
Oh, great. Yeah,
Yeah,
that was
that
a
was
fun
good.
one. I had a little fun making a hook at the beginning with a little fake infomercial.
Yeah, you don't look old enough to have a sore back. Like I said, I mean, me, yeah, my back's been pretty good, but I get that. Okay, so? Do you take gear via shipping? Do you ship restored units, or is it only local pickup and delivery? How does that work for you?
Yeah, so I mean, I used to take ship and work at the beginning when I didn't have a strong local customer base, but through word of mouth, my name eventually got out locally, and there was enough local work to sustain my calendar. Uh, I stopped taking ship and work probably 4 years ago,
Oh
and
wow.
I have a few main reasons for it. So what can happen from time to time, if somebody ships something in and I do a full restoration, say I do a Pioneer SX 1250, I do a full restoration on it. Before that gets packed and shipped back to the customer, I always run them for like 30 hours, three 10-hour stints, 3 days in a row, and just to make sure everything is temperature stable and there's no intermittent issues. And many times during that process, I'll catch something, a cold solder joint or something that I missed, or a tuner drift or something, and I can resolve it before it gets shipped back. But once I pack it and drop it off to the carrier, I have no control of what happens next. So if something gets knocked around in shipping, maybe a card becomes loose or something like that. It arrives at the customer's house. There's distortion in one channel, flickering lamp, something like that. What do you do at that point?
Yeah.
Because I want to warranty my products. You know what I mean? I'm proud of the work that I do, and I want to make sure that I provide a good value for the customer. So if that situation happens, at that point, I feel obligated to cover the return shipping cost to get it back to me to fix it, and then cover shipping again to get it back
Yeah.
to the customer. And it ends up adding up, and I can't make a living like that. So that's one of the reasons is warranty. Another reason is rarity. On some of the stuff that I'm working on, these monster receivers, and especially vintage 1960s Marantz, there's not unlimited supply of these things out there. There's only so many of them around. And anytime one gets damaged in shipping, that's just one more that's going to get parted out. So I try to stick to all local work, people within a driving radius where they can come and drop something off and pick it up. And I guess in the end, that's the goal that I'd like to have for the audio repair industry as a whole, is for more, young techs to get
Yeah.
interested in this type of work and start to get places like mine popping up all over the country so that people have access to these things and don't have to ship things back and forth.
Where do most of your customers come from then? Is it word of mouth now, or do you get people see you on YouTube and go, "Hey, I live in Ithaca. Can I bring a fire?"
Yeah, it's well, I'm lucky in my location. So between New York, New Jersey, Connecticut, these people are all within driving distance of me. So I have a pretty good base on a concentration. Like this area is one of the most concentrated places in the country for vintage audio equipment. It's here, Texas, and California seem to
Oh,
be the big places where a lot of equipment was sold in the glory days of hi-fi. So um, a lot of the work that I get is word of mouth, and referral. And then on the social media side, Instagram, I get a lot of customers that reach out to me through Instagram that are local because they get to know me, they know where I'm located, and they come up with a project. So Instagram, I get a lot, and then YouTube as well.
What's the strangest thing you've been asked to restore or repair?
Do you want me to stick to something audio
It
related or
could be
anything general?
anything, anything.
I have a friend that's a mechanic, and he asked me to repair a key fob for him once, which I was able to do.
That's not overly strange. Those things are expensive. Uh,
So yeah, that's I don't see a lot of stuff outside of
I
audio.
don't.
I guess I had an antique dealer once ask me to test and repair a fan, an antique fan.
Okay.
It didn't need much, but that's probably that. On the audio side, probably the strangest thing I worked on was an electric compagnette uh, power amplifier that used all TO20 package transistors for the output in biased in Class A. It's a very strange topology, but really, really nice sounding amp. I believe this specific amp was designed in Norway, if I'm not
Oh,
mistaken.
okay. Okay. What are your two favorite pieces of test equipment? Tools or test equipment?
Well, let's do tools first, then
All
we'll do
right.
test equipment. So for tools, um, snap-on flush cutters.
Okay.
Like every tech's got a preference on flush cutters. These are the ones that I really like. And I think I'm going to, or these aren't produced by Snap-on anymore, but I have a lead on how to get these, and I think I'm going to start stocking them on my Patreon page if people are interested in buying them. The other hand tool that I can't live without is my Snap-on ratcheting screwdriver. I don't like to use power tools when working on electronics because it's very easy to strip a screw or a threaded insert. So I use a ratcheting screwdriver to speed up the process. So for hand tools, flush cutters and ratcheting screwdriver are my big
I like my little electric, mainly for,
oh,
you know, for fast removal of screws on chassis
Yep.
and
My
then
general rule
manually
is that
torquing.
is it's okay to use a power tool to remove screws, but I prefer to reinsert screws by hand so that
Yeah,
I can
yeah.
feel
I'll
the
start them
material.
with the power. I'll
Yep.
start them with
Yep.
the power. And then test your test equipment. Okay.
Test equipment. There's no contest. Sencor
Listen.
PA81. It's and I'm sorry to say it because these are extremely rare and they're getting extremely expensive.
Yes.
So anytime these get mentioned by any audio repair channel, they just become more and more desirable. But it really is in the product literature for it, it's called the missing link in audio repair, and it really is the truth. It's something that really speeds up my process. I know that it's my favorite piece of test equipment because when it breaks, all work stops until the PA81 is repaired.
Yeah, I use the Quantasylum gear,
Yep.
which needs to be hooked up to the computer. I started looking at finding one of those after I saw your video, and you're right. I haven't seen one.
When you look at it and how the product's named and the metering and stuff, you'd think that it's just a dummy load for testing
Well,
amplifiers.
more than that, but
I, I almost never use it for that. I use it as a scope interface and as
okay.
a high gain amplifier for the most part. So the way that I usually use it is hooking up a preamplifier to it. It loads the preamp at 10K, and then you can get it's got speakers on it. So when you turn up the volume knobs, you can hear the signal, you can see it on your oscilloscope, and you can meter it. So if I've got a volume control that looks like it's inconsistent throughout its range, I can set a dB reference and then turn down the volume and look at the needles and see if the deviation exceeds 1 dB. So there's like all kinds of little uses for
Uses
it.
for it. Yeah, maybe I'll look. Maybe one day I'll run into one, but it's one of those things I don't need. But it's like, what
Yeah,
else am
it's
I gonna?
really for somebody that's doing this more on the hobby side of things. It's not a essential device, but for somebody that does this full time, anything
Yeah.
that I can do to speed up my workflow, and that's what its main function is just to make the connections easier and be able to really quickly diagnose things and see and hear signals without having to jump a bunch of wires back and forth.
Okay. So how do you price your jobs? Is it flat rate plus parts, hourly? How do you approach?
So I used to offer flat rate repairs on amplifiers that I was very familiar with. So Pioneer SX1250, for example, I think I've done close to 25 of those. And they take about, for me, it takes about 24 hours of labor to restore. and the parts costs are pretty consistent. They go up and down with tariffs and supply chain disruptions, but I was able to get a pretty consistent price on those. But the problem is it ended up being unfair to the customer in some cases and unfair to me as the technician in other cases. So if somebody brought in a 1250 that had low hours and was near mint, I might be able to save 3 hours in labor on the cleaning just because the thing doesn't need to be cleaned and polished. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So in that case, if I flat rated it, the customer would kind of get the short end of the stick there. And then in other situations, I might end up where there's some issue that's not my fault or the customer's fault. Maybe there's a bad chip in the tuner or something like that. And I spend 5 hours troubleshooting it before I finally figure out what it is. Um, so there's things like that where I could go way over on the hours on something like that, or I could be under. So I ended up defaulting to time and materials for all of my billing, and that's how it works now.
Do you consider yourself a go-to guy for any gear? I'm guessing right now it's the Pioneer SX 1250.
I just
Wait,
really love that unit. So whenever somebody has one, I try to get them into the schedule because I just really enjoy working on them. They're a piece of engineering art. So yeah, I guess you could say I'm an SX 1250 specialist. That's the piece that I know the best. Other things that I'm kind of known for are East Coast 1960s Marantz. I work on a lot of the early Marantz tube equipment. Marantz 7, Marantz 8B, Marantz
uh,
9. So yeah, big Pioneer, big monster receivers, East Coast Marantz, and then a thing that is not shown on my channel very often is Macintosh, but I service a lot of Macintosh equipment, so that's another specialty of mine.
oh, okay. We have one guy in Tucson that's like a 9090 Sansui, older guy. I
Yep.
believe his name's Eldon. I have yet to meet him, but he's good friends. But he's like the 9090
Yeah.
repair expert, maybe the
Does he do the
8080.
9090 DB?
Yeah, either one. He
Oh,
knows
okay,
those
good.
things.
Good.
I've seen his he writes, everything that he did to it, what he measured. It's really thorough. It's by hand. But I think he's like 80 and he's, on not taking as many jobs. But if I had a 9090 and it was something I didn't want to mess with, I would send it to him. I don't I would like to have an 8080 one day because I had one of those in college. That
Yep.
was like my first real receiver, and I sold it, and then I bought a Carver M400
Okay.
and a disco preamp and my Eclipse Scalas that I still own. And that was like my first. No, I didn't have that with the Klipsch, but that was like the first real receiver I bought. And so
Yeah,
maybe
yeah,
one day
the
I'll get
8080
one of those.
is nice. The problem with the 8080, it's such a nice receiver. It's basically the 9090 with a little bit less power, and
Power.
you don't have tone defeat switches. Otherwise, it's basically the same
Oh,
amp. So it's a really, really nice receiver. But because it's not the top of the line, the value on it is like less than half of the 9090.
yeah. Well, it might
Uh,
be easier. Like it's one of those things that I'm not really sentimental about gear at all, but if
yeah,
one came across, that would be kind of fun.
yeah,
Oh,
definitely
saving.
pick them up. They're a joy to work on.
What is your home system?
So my home system is constantly in flux. I'm trying to nail it down now because I actually have a dedicated shop space. So my home system before in Manhattan doubled as my long-term test system. So when I talked about earlier setting up a receiver for three days, 10 hours straight, that's it would live in my main system. I'm getting a little bit more fine-tuned right now, but for speakers, I have a pair of EPOS ES14, which are great for their. They have a very good ability to do stereo imaging, so it's a good way to check and make sure I don't have any phase issues or anything like that with amplifiers. So that's mostly what the EPOS ES14 are for. And then I have a high efficiency speaker, which is the Altec Valencia 846B that I restored on my channel. So that's what I have for speakers. For a turntable, I am just about to add a Technics SL1200G.
Okay, that's a new one.
So, yep, yeah, that's it. Has the main reason I'm going with that. It has an anodized aluminum top, which matches. It like goes perfectly with the vintage Pioneer stuff. It's a brushed anodized top.
So you have
So
a
yeah,
Pioneer receiver powering
yep.
this. I'm
Well, I have an SX 1980, but it's not. It's eye candy at this point. It doesn't really stay connected in
yeah.
the system. Um, we talked about speakers, turntable. I have a Klein phono stage, very nice phono stage. For preamp right now, I'm running a Audio Research SP6 vacuum tube preamp. So other sources, I have a highly modified Toshiba CD player. That's pretty cool. It has the transport drawer on the front. The entire thing comes down and then the drawer comes out. It's really cool. It's something you wouldn't normally
Oh,
think of as being a high-end CD player, but it's a full copper chassis. It's a nice piece. So that's kind of what's in the main system. And then in the lab area for my long-term test rig, I have an Accuphase P300 power amplifier and a Rotel, what is this, RC1570, which is like a DAC preamp with balanced inputs and outputs. So that kind of gives me all the connection options that I need so that I can basically slot anything in between that amp and that preamp. I can kind of test anything.
that's pretty cool. I've got time for, I think, one more question. Do you ever sell gear that you got as part of a barter deal or picked up somehow?
Yeah,
Do you
yeah. So
resell stuff?
uh, I struggle to find time in my calendar to actually work on my own equipment. But for example, right now I was able to get a little bit of time to work on some personal projects. So I've got a couple of Yamaha CT 7000 tuners that I have at the bench right now, and those will be up for sale soon. So what I usually do is just post those to my eBay page. I might do something with equipment now that I'm establishing a Patreon page where I offer anything that is going up on the market to my patrons first, and then after a time, it would go onto eBay to the public.
Is YouTube treating you well?
I mean, it's fun. It's not something that is going to be a huge amount of income. My channel is monetized, which is great.
Yeah. Yeah.
To give a little bit of a little bit of kickback for the time invested, but it's not at the level where it's compensating for the time that's put in. I hope that someday there might be a changeover where where it's a little bit more profitable. But what I get out of YouTube right now is a lot of really great support and comments that help me learn. So I really enjoy when I post an in-depth video, especially if I'm building something like the Dynacom Mark IIIs I just recently posted. I built those out basically from a gutted chassis, and it was good to see a bunch of comments critiquing the work and telling me where I could improve. And that's a lot of how I
Oh,
learn nowadays. So that's great. So
yeah.
YouTube is treating me well. I do really enjoy it, and I'm going to continue to post.
Yeah, I will continue to do it as long as I have stuff to do. So that's why I'm going to try to do occasionally interviews with other people that have YouTube channels that I find interesting. So I'm going to end it with this. I thank you. And like I said, I'm going to post a link to your channel if the people don't know you in one of your videos. And like I said, you're really up there with the people that, I don't subscribe to that many channels, but you're one of them. And like I said, you just do a good job and I wish you the best.
Cool. Yeah. Yeah. Thank you so much. I'm
All right. And
really humbled
I'm
here.
getting ready to work on my C80, Yamaha C80 that somebody sent me to save from a dumpster.
I got to get back into these Yamaha tuners and get these things into tip-top shape.
Well, you have the right thing to do tuners. I don't have any of that
Oh yeah,
before.
I've got the Suncor SG80.
Yeah.
That's another one. Good luck finding one.
Yeah, I'm not at all interested in tuners. The people I deal with don't really care about them. Although when you see a video on the this guy right here, it's the 8900 ZDB Sansui. It was on Kevin from Skylab's list of things never to buy or work on.
Okay.
Well, the 9900, and you will crack up at my fix. I just if you watch the video, that'll be out in a month or two. But
Okay.
uh, I the way I fix the tuner, that's what I do. It's
Yeah,
not
yeah.
I didn't need that, but
That was a
anyway,
skill that I had to add to my list because I work on so many of the receivers. And on a receiver, a
yeah,
lot of customers expect if you're getting a full restoration that the tuner is going to be aligned as well. So
yeah.
I'll be sure to tune in for that one.
So, well, I thank you, Ben.
Thank
Enjoy
you.
the rest of your day, and we'll be in touch. And good luck.
You too, Scott. Bye bye.
Bye. Once again, I would like to thank Ben from Novalux Stereophonics for taking some time out of his day to be interviewed for this video. I will post a link to Ben's YouTube channel in the description area for this video, which is also where you can leave comments or questions. Hopefully you enjoyed the video and will give me a thumbs up. And if you have not subscribed to the channel, I hope you'll consider doing so. as well as subscribing to Ben's channel if you have not done so already. So once again, I thank you for watching, and until next time, have a great day or night.